Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here this morning. It's a beautiful day, and we're grateful for the time that you're here to learn little bit more about our programs. Welcome to the Arts Breakout Session. My name is Taya Harlos, and I am the head of the music department, and I am also the director of all the orchestras in the school. I do chamber music, co-teach a musical theater class, do a lot of interesting things at the school. I am joined today by a panel of some of the most incredible arts educators and students that we have at the school. And we're going to have a chance to each share a little bit about our programs and what we do, but also answer some questions that we think might be relevant to you. As always, you are welcome to put any questions that you have directly in the chat, or if you raise your hand, we can call on you directly. So, as I said, my name is Taya Harlos. I am head of the music department and director of orchestras, and I'm going to pass it on to Megan Culp.
Let's try that again. Hello, good morning. I'm Megan Culp. I'm the head of the art department, the visual art department. And I'm excited to be here with you and my amazing colleagues. So we were, given this question or query, how do the arts at GFS inspire students to find their voice and learn from the voice of others? And when thinking about the visual arts, I was thinking first, it's so exciting to be a teacher of the arts at Germantown Friends School because the creative disciplines are so well established within the academic program and a really integral part from from preschool all the way up through 12th grade. Kids really are really engaged in a wide variety of creative learning. So we have a really intentional progression and extremely talented teachers. And when thinking about visual art, a few things sort of popped out to me about finding voice. So, from pre-K all the way through 12th, we're teaching kids how to communicate visually and how to understand their own story. And so those two things in conjunction are really important. And with visual art, there's a few things that I think are really inherent to that type of learning. And one is really learning how to observe. And, the gift of observation, the act of observation is a way of really closely studying our world. And then, of course, expression, learning how to express our unique thoughts and viewpoints, and learning how to express our questions. When I was thinking about this, I was like, one thing that's really great about visual art is we're not just thinking about expressing answers, but really what are our questions? And then obviously what most people think of imagination and creation, but really want to hold up how important that is in finding your own voice and how important that is to the world right now. Through developing these two skills, which I really do believe are skills, kids learn how to imagine new ideas or solutions or realities, and then how to take something from an idea into reality. So when we do all of these things in community with each other, we're really learning deeply about each other. These modes of learning, when we're in a studio community, we're learning by doing and watching and discussing. And it's often a really dynamic space. So I was thinking about an example. I teach a course called Senior Studio, and obviously these are all students sort of at the conclusion or nearing the conclusion of their visual art education at GFS. And I have 3 students investigating a really similar idea through their work. So they're investigating the role of external or physical expression and how that relates to the inner self or maybe your real self. And one student's making a series of paintings, a series of portraits that move from black and white to full color, and then finally into a portrait that really focuses on dress. And then another student's making a series of paintings on pairs of men's pants about expectations for women. And then the third student is actually sewing a garment, sewing a jacket that doesn't rely on our sort of visual expectations of feminine or masculine, and 3D designing and 3D printing the buttons for that jacket. And I just think about these three students and how that really exemplifies the answer to this question, because they're in constant visual and verbal dialogue with each other about their views on this very same thing and sort of weaving through it in really different ways. And that's it for me. I mean, there's a lot more, but I don't want to take up others' time. But yeah, I mean, we have such a dynamic program, and we're always calling on the kids to investigate the world and really communicate back. Visual art is communication. So there's no better way to find your voice and learn from others than communicating.
Thank you, Megan. I'm going to pass it off to Gio now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gio. I teach theater in the middle and upper school here at GFS. The theater program is being built up and has been built up over the last several years. And now when Sloan, my colleague, joins, she'll talk more about early childhood and lower school, but we now have a theater and movement dance program that spans all 4 of our divisions, which is really exciting. In the middle school, one of the things we do that I believe focuses on students finding their voice is we really hone in on theater as an artistic medium that is performative storytelling. So in 6th grade, I'm working with the 6th graders right now. I just came from a class where they've been brainstorming characters, and we've been studying the Pixar rules for storytelling, and they're creating characters, and now they're writing monologues off those characters. And you sort of see in those moments where they're sort of filtering things through their own lives. Like maybe they're making a character inspired from a superhero movie they like, or they're making a character somewhat inspired by what might be a parent or some adult in their life, or it's something super fantastical that they are dreaming up. And really what I do and what the theater teachers do is just sort of steward their creative growth and how they want to explore stories and make stories and then realize them in 3D, right? Which is what we do in theater. And then that just sort of builds through the years. In 7th and 8th grade, there's more chances to improv and to create on our feet and build as we go. And then when we get to 9th grade, all 9th graders take a theater class. And we have 2 main cruxes of that course. One is another storytelling unit where it's personal narrative, where we study the art of storytelling. And then we delve into theater as a way to make sense of the world, right? So theater is this way that humanity for thousands of years has come together to be entertained, to face problems, to figure out what to do next, right? To examine really big questions. And I feel like I am holding back on some thoughts because I'm really echoing a lot of what Megan does. I think in many ways, all these art divisions, departments we're working towards the same goal in different mediums, right? So it's about sort of letting the students examine what their questions are or what they need to make sense of. And then how do we do that within the medium of theater, right? How do we build a story and then make it happen in 3D with an audience? And what is that? How does that dream the culture forward and dream our community forward? Yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say at the moment, and I'm gonna pass to Sloan, or to Taya to pass to Sloan.
Nope, go right ahead, Sloan. Let's have you take over here.
Great. Thank you, Gio and Taya. Hi, my name's Sloan Carney, and I teach dance and theater here. I am actually in all 4 divisions, but what I primarily do is within our early childhood division and our lower school division. So I'm going to touch on that since Gio kind of took you from middle to upper. Yeah, something Gio kind of touched on this already, but part of our theater mission statement is that we're committed to the cultivation of the individual artist and their imagination, and to the communal practice of collaboration and performance. So within the early childhood division, movement is so important to our early learners and their development. So it really is about like using their imagination, about allowing them to create non-verbally, but then also how do we put that into verbal expression as well. So finding their voice from a very young age. And then how do we use that within partnerships, and how are we thinking about like positive touch with each other. So it all kind of works together within the early childhood movement classes. And then as we get to the lower school, we are now in all of the grades except for kindergarten this year, but within the lower school, we have a program called Theater Movement Arts. And essentially that program it partners with the classroom teachers and it partners with the classroom curriculum to kind of uplift that curriculum and give students another outlet to learn and create with kind of this umbrella of theater and movement lens. So again, being able to kind of within this like storytelling realm, how can we use our creative movements and our vocal expression to create something either individually or with a group. So that's kind of it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sloan. I'm going to welcome Megan Boone-Siegel to the front now.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am the lower school woodshop teacher here at GFS. This is actually my first year teaching, but it's a really great space. We work with second, third, fourth, and fifth graders here. And to kind of talk about, I want to make room for questions, but really to just highlight the query about finding voices and learning from others. I think echoing a lot of the sentiments of what the other teachers have said about finding one's voice, but I feel really particular about learning from others with woodshop, because there's the literal, you can't make everything by yourself, and you really need to rely and work with one another in order to physically build the project that you're doing. And I think it's really a great space for lower school students to have that opportunity. Whether it's guiding someone while they're drilling a hole, or acting as a human clamp as glue dries for one another. It kind of puts students in a situation that they haven't otherwise been in their other academic settings here at GFS. And that's really unique, and I think something special that we offer here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. Appreciate it. I'm also really thrilled that we have a student to speak a little bit about their experience. And so I want to welcome Sam Zimmer to speak a little about, from their experience, how they see GFS inspiring students to find their voice and learn from that of others.
Yeah, thanks, Taya. So my name is Sam Zimmer. I'm in 11th grade. I came to GFS 2 years ago in 9th grade. And I guess I'll start there with my art journey here at GFS. The first class that I took here was called Foundations. In order to take any higher level art classes, at least in high school, we have to take the class called Foundations. And there was one project that really stood out to me, and just really appreciating art more, where we were working backwards. So we were given a word that we had to try and represent using little black stickers. And I think that was the first time that I was really able to see, a modern art that I hadn't really appreciated before, and understand, or try and understand, where other artists are coming from. So connecting that back to the query, I'd say that class really helped me to seek out learning from other people and their forms of art. In 9th grade, I also took, so like Gio had mentioned before, the 9th grade musical. So I was working in backstage for it. And so that was the first time I'd ever been in a woodshop. So April was my teacher for that class. So we were learning how to, use power tools and build general structures. Unfortunately, it cut short because of COVID. But then this year, I'm hoping to go back into backstage. During the winter season, we're going to have a production. So I'm hoping to do that again. And then the other art class that I'm taking right now is called Creative Furniture Making. Right now, I'm building a box. And again, my teacher is Rachel this year. And I just feel really supported at GFS. Learning how to use different materials and how to really appreciate art. Even though I started out as someone who isn't necessarily doing a lot of art, now at GFS I feel inspired to do more.
Thanks, Sam. That's so helpful to have your voice as part of this. So I'll speak last just a little bit about the music department. One of the, as I hear everyone speak, I find so much commonality in our programs, and looking for ways to spark that creativity in students, and finding, I guess, creating that space, right? I think a lot of our creative outlets require a little bit of space, both mental space, creative space, and a little bit of physical space as well. But in order to from that space to create something that is original and unique and is expressive of individual viewpoints and feelings. And there's always the technical and the musical elements in music, right? And one of the things I think we do really well is breaking down those musical elements in ways that are accessible to anyone. So we have students that can enter in at programs at any point. We have students that enter at any point during their lower, middle, or upper school career, and they're still able to successfully be part of ensembles or music classes. In the upper school, we have two rough buckets of classes. We have performance classes and we have academic music classes, and both provide that outlet for students. There are some students that are absolutely thrilled to be in front of an audience and looking for ways to engage in both new and old music and create that spark of energy. I was sitting here thinking about the video that opened the program, and making that video with the students in the meeting house. And while the video is lovely, being part of that video, I know the electricity that we all felt sitting in the very center of the meeting house and playing. And there's a certain energy that really comes from live performances that even a video or a taped performance doesn't do justice to. And so to be back in person again is just the greatest joy in the world for all musicians right now, to be finding the ways to connect with other people. And that's also with the audience. I know when we do performances in the Loeb Performing Center or in the Meeting House or in the Poli, that to have a live audience, it is such a connective spirit between audience and performers. But also thinking about like our academic music classes, we have 2 levels of theory and 2 levels of composition, where students can literally take their own ideas and learning the tools to put that on paper, and to then have those original ideas performed. So those are some of the highlights that I see in the music department. So at this point, I'm going to throw out a couple questions to our whole panel. And again, for folks that are watching this, feel free, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and I will definitely keep an eye on those to make sure that we get to hear you as well. So to our group, our panel of people here, Megan, Gio, Megan, and Sam, I want to ask you, and anyone can start this off, how do the arts integrate with other subjects like history or math, or what are the places that you've been able to find or see connections or collaborations? Megan, yeah, go for it.
All right. This is a really, this just happened last week, so it's fresh in my mind. And this was really more of a spontaneous collaboration, which is sometimes the best. But I had So my art studio is right next to a Latin classroom, which is, I love so much. Latin is extremely lively at GFS. And I had a student, we were painting, we're sort of taking this day to paint papers, just like move paint across papers that they were then going to cut up for a more complex project. We were having this day of sort of painting paper because they'd been doing this really tedious work. And I had a student that had all of these like really hot colors, and she was dragging them across the page. And she was like, Megan, can I use this for my Latin project? And I was like, yes, you can. And they had been translating some sort of text around Hades and hell. And so she like made this immediate connection of this visual and physical act to all this sort of information that was swirling in her mind from Latin. So that's, and that happens a lot. And so then I actually went and talked to the Latin teachers, and they showed me all of these visual projects that had been done in Latin. And you could see seeds of things we had done in the studio that then were being sort of communicated in the Latin class, and then Latin class was coming into the studio. And I find that things like that happen a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Megan. Does anyone else want to touch on that question? Yeah, Gio.
Yeah, we just had just a quick little example that happened yesterday, actually, in ninth grade theater. So we're studying, we're in a unit right now where we're looking at design and theatrical design and all the other people that make the play happen in 3D who don't maybe get as much focus as the performers. And we were looking at a recent production of Angels in America that happened in London and then was on Broadway, I think, right before the pandemic. But in that play, an angel crashes through the ceiling and lifts this character up. And it's a big epic about the AIDS epidemic. And we watched this video about how this newer production made the angel fly with counterbalance. So there were the person playing the angel and all these puppeteers operating the wings who were roped through the pulley system to other humans on these ladders that had to go up and down, which then the ninth graders are also studying physics right now. So which then led to, we were talking a little bit about the physics of counterbalance and pulleys and all these things. And it was a fun moment where I was like, see, physics, even if you might not be into physics, it could help you if you're into art, you know?
Thanks, Gio. Anyone else want to touch on that one? I got one. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Hi, yeah, I'll also add in. So some of the projects that we do in Lower School Woodshop connect to the curriculum of their social studies courses. And for one project in particular, we do Alebrije, which are Oaxacan, from the Oaxaca region of Mexico. They're kind of traditional folk art, but actually originated around the 1940s, late 1930s. And they're these really brightly colorful painted creatures. They don't have to look literally like an animal. It could be like an owl, or an owl with a horn, or lions with butterfly wings. You know, some of the students are getting really creative with it, but it's a nice way to recognize artisans from another part of the world and appreciate their craft, and then also be creative in the wood shop. So it's a really fun project.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Megan. I'm going to throw out a little question for folks that are watching this today, just so we can get maybe a little information from you. So folks that are attending our panel today, I would love if you would just put in the chat what your relationship is to the arts, because obviously you chose to be here. Maybe you have a student that is somehow interested in it or very engaged in the arts already. Maybe it's something that you personally have a connection to. So if you wouldn't mind, as we're answering the next question, just throw in the chat what your relationship is to the arts. And for the panel, I have another question. And I actually want to maybe start with Sam for this one. What are the lessons that you've learned, broader lessons, not just the specific within the classroom lessons? What are the broader lessons you've learned from art, music, theater classes that you've taken?
So the first thing that comes to mind is resiliency. In my creative furniture making class, I had been in the workshop in ninth grade, but it's a little bit of relearning the tools and whatnot. So I've found that I've had to redo a couple things when I mismeasured something or cut something a little bit off. So just, the idea of stepping back and seeing what's happening and going back to the drawing board and trying again. And then the other thing that also connects back to the question before of how does it connect to other classes too. It made me think of my ninth grade art class and just kind of appreciating other people's work. That also connected back to my English class. When we're reading a book or looking at poetry, just really thinking about what the writer was doing. I think that made me appreciate English class more too, because then I'm able to, connect with the work more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. And thanks to folks that have already put things in the chat. This is so helpful. It always feels a little one way. And so this is a great way for us to connect with you as well. We're all creatives here. And so we need that connection to you. And so I want to throw out that larger question to the faculty that are on this call. What have you learned? What are the larger lessons that you've learned from teaching in your craft at GFS?
So I think much like what Sam was just talking about, something that's so wonderful about the theater department is we really put focus on the process, not necessarily the product. So I think failure is a really wonderful thing to learn. Learn how to fail and what you can do with it and what you can push forward and create with that. And that's something that I feel like working with younger students, it may not always be exactly what we think that it's going to come out, but how can we take that and learn from it and create something maybe even better, or as Gio always likes to say, different. So.
Thanks, Sloan. I'm so with you on that failure piece. I think there's no greater lesson than falling on your face a couple times and learning how to get back up. Megan, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I've just found it really interesting teaching woodshop, where it can be seen maybe as more of a technical art, where it's like, it's measuring, there's math, there's a right and wrong way to do it. But teaching that to students, especially here at this younger age group, it's been really interesting because it's not so black and white. And a lot of the time I'm describing, you got to learn by the feel of it. And it's interesting to kind of echo that failure sentiment, is that the students really need to experience failure or just do it many, many, many times. And I think a lot of students are used to having the answer right away or being able to do it right away, the right way. And it just isn't like that in woodshop, because a lot of times, students haven't used these tools before. And it's kind of like guiding them on a journey that they kind of have to find themselves, because I can't cut the wood for them and I can't make the project for them. So it's just been I've been learning a lot of how to communicate that, you learn by the feel of it, keep trying, it's okay. Your first one may not be what you expected, but if you keep going, it gets better and better.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Gio, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add, loving all of these thoughts is being shared. And also I think specifically in theater, I think you really hone these creative problem solving skills where one of the things we talk about with theater is that the part of the beauty of it is that it's imperfect at what it does, in that we always know it's not really happening. And so say students are making a piece and it's supposed to start snowing, but we don't have a fake snow machine that's not going to start snowing. We then have to kind of thinking, like, zoom out and think maybe a little metaphorically or symbolically, like, how could we make it start snowing, right? So then 5 kids are all brainstorming, like, oh, well, maybe we need a fan, and maybe I'll rip up paper that was a letter from an earlier scene, right? They start like pulling all these really beautiful kind of creative ideas and the teamwork in that, and then to make something that is maybe more exciting in the world of sort of CGI VR, where we're used to these things not being real but seeming real, to make things that don't seem real but are real. Yeah.
Thanks to you. I'm going to add to this, but I just want to encourage, if there are any questions that anyone has, thank you for your narratives in the chat. If anyone has any questions that we can answer for you, specific or general ones, please feel free to throw them in the chat. And my answer to that question, I guess, one of the things as a teacher, I think that I've learned, and I hope this is something that my students gain from working with me, is that I don't always have to be the expert in the room. I'm the person, yes, with maybe the most experience in certain fields, but not all of them. That's impossible. You know, I come from a very classical music trained background of going to a conservatory on violin. You can't get, you know, more narrow than that in some ways. But being a teacher for so many years, and I won't say how many, has really taught me that there's value for me in learning from my students. There's value from the collective approach. Every ensemble that I work with is a different ensemble. The membership is different. The strengths are different. The interests are different. And I think that there's great opportunity for that level of learning on both ends. And it makes it, it's much more of a growth mindset rather than that fixed mindset of having an ending. Allie asks in the chat, do you guys ever have collaborations between upper and lower school students for art projects? Megan, would you like to field that, or Megan?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I would love to do so much more of, and one project really comes to mind, which is a collaboration between a upper school color and design class and first grade. And this is a really fun collaboration where the color and design students first learn how to do this really tactile and intricate way of mapping font, sort of the old-fashioned way with geometry. And it takes a lot of time and patience. And then we go down to the first grade, and the upper schoolers work and have a conversation and sort of lead the first graders into making paintings that are related to the first letter of their name. And, you know, it's just all of this very wet paint and lots of, like, you know, they make like 10 paintings in 5 minutes. And it's very energetic and very loose and very beautiful. And the first graders love being with the upper schoolers. And then the upper schoolers, you know, borrow the paintings from the first graders and bring them back to the upper school classroom. And then their sort of final project is figuring out how to design an image that integrates this really structured, precise letter with the energy of these first grade paintings. And they're great. They always turn out great. And then we have a time, you know, when it's not COVID, where the two sets of artists come together to see the result of their collaboration.
Thank you, Megan. We have another question in the chat. How much art, music, theater time is there in the middle and high school schedule, or range if it depends on electives? I'll speak to the music portion. In middle school, all students have a general music class, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 8th grade meets 4 times in the 8-day schedule. For half the year. 6th and 7th are meeting 2 and 3 times in the 8-day schedule. But in addition to that, they also have ensembles that they can sign up for, and those meet an additional 3 periods in the 8-day cycle. In upper school, there's a really wide variety. Students are required to take 2 semesters of music anytime in their upper school career, but we have students that are regularly taking multiple music classes. I'm just thinking through the range, having done reports recently, students who are taking up to 10 music classes in the week. So there's a vast range, and if anyone else wants to add to their discipline.
For theater and movement in the middle school, it's shifted a bit because of COVID. but there's a semester-long theater in 6th grade and a semester-long dance in 6th grade. In the 7th grade, it's a quarter based, so it's 1/4 of theater and 1/4 of dance, which is more physical theater ensemble. In 8th grade, we do an all 8th grade production, which just happened in the first quarter. We did an outdoor traveling Macbeth with music and sword fighting. And then there's electives in the last quarter. And then similar to what Taya said, in the upper school, there's a wide range. There's a mandatory 9th grade theater class that's 1 semester. And then after that, it's many electives that they can build into major courses and spend as much time as they want on it in technical and performative and writing.
Well, I'm aware of the time, and I'm so sorry to cut us a little short. It feels like there's way more that we could go into, but we're just looking at the time and realizing that we're going to have to bring this to a close. I want to take a moment and thank all my panelists for being here today and sharing their passion and sharing their expertise on what their experiences are in art, music, and theater. And at this point, I'd like to encourage all of our attendees to return to this closing session, which is going to begin at 10:05. Thanks so much for being here, and feel free to get in touch if you have any additional questions.